White clover is a common edible plant. You will find it in yards, woodlots, fields, and cleared areas all around you. When I was a kid growing up on the farm, we learned quickly that running barefoot through the yard could get you a sting from the seemingly endless supply of honeybees that were collecting the pollen from the flowers. This is where clover honey comes from. You may have walked right through a patch of white clover the last time you were outdoors without giving it a second thought. If so, you might be surprised to know that white clover is edible, and really rather tasty. White clover is good for yards and gardens, because it is a nitrogen fixative plant. This means that it takes nitrogen from the air and transports it into the soil, where it can be used by other plants. This can greatly help the fertility of your soil. In fact, fertilizing white clover can kill the plants from getting too much nitrogen. White clover can be good to have planted around a garden, because it is a bee and butterfly attractor. You want these pollinator insects to be drawn to your garden to help pollinate your vegetable crops too. Edible uses for white clover. Besides being easy to identify, white clover is easy to use in the kitchen too. The entire aerial, or above ground parts, of the plant are edible. The flowers, leaves, seed pods, and stems are all fine for use in cooking. The leaves and flowers are probably the most used parts of the plant in cooking. They have a sweet, delicate flavor that can add a twist to your cooking. They can be used fresh or dried for later use. I use a food dehydrator on the lowest heat setting for about 5 hours to dry the flowers and leaves. Ways to use white clover in the kitchen. The leaves can be used fresh in salads or as greens in cooked dishes. The leaves and flowers both have a slightly sweet taste. They also have a mild vanilla aftertaste. The flowers can be dried and ground up for use as a gluten-free flour substitute. The ground flowers can also be mixed in with your regular flour to add some sweet goodness to your baked goods. The slight vanilla flavor makes it good for use in cookies and cakes. The flowers and leaves can also be dried and used to make a refreshing tisane. This is the actual name for what many people call herbal tea. It is simply a water infusion created with plant parts that are not actually from the tea plant. Health benefits of white clover. Although white clover is less favored than red clover in herbal medicine circles, it still contains health benefits. It is high in vitamins like vitamin A, B2 and B3, vitamin C, and vitamin A. It also contains minerals our bodies need such as calcium, magnesium, potassium, and chromium. So if you are looking for a naturally foraged food that is good for you and sweet too, you just found it. Precautions. There are a few precautions we always recommend when foraging for wild food items. First and foremost is to be totally sure about your identification of any plant you plan to consume or use on your body. Misidentification is probably the #1 cause of problems for people when first starting out with wild foraging. A mistake here can be quite uncomfortable, or even deadly with certain plants. Be safe, and if you aren't sure, leave it there and ask an expert. White clover is generally considered safe for consumption in reasonable quantities. But there are a few things to keep in mind. It can thin the blood, so those on blood thinners or drugs for hypertension should consult with a medical professional before consuming. You should stop consumption at least 2 weeks prior to any planned surgical procedures, including dental procedures, due to the risk of increased bleeding. You should also be aware that consuming large quantities can lead to gas and painful bloating. Be sure to start out slowly and only consume a small amount until you are sure how your body will react. Now that you are aware of some uses for this amazingly abundant plant, I bet you won't look at it as simply a weed ever again. The more we learn about the natural world and all it has to offer, the more in tune with nature and the earth we become. We learn to sustainably harvest what we need and to appreciate the true bounty that exists in nature for us to make use of. If you enjoyed this video, be sure and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you will get alerted when we upload new videos. As always, thanks for watching.